India, a land of enduring peace and resilience, has long borne the brunt of cross-border terrorism. Yet, India has always risen above these challenges, demonstrating an unwavering commitment to safeguarding its sovereignty and protecting its citizens. However, recent events have tested the limits of our patience and compelled us to adopt a more assertive posture. Operation Sindhoor, a meticulously planned and precisely executed military operation, marks a paradigm shift in India's approach to combating terrorism. This operation, while bold and decisive, was not an act of aggression, but a measured response to a grave provocation. It underscored India's resolve to no longer tolerate the use of its neighbour's territory as a safe haven for terrorists targeting Indian citizens. The operation, carried out with surgical precision, targeted terrorist infrastructure across the border, aiming to dismantle the networks that threaten our peace and security. Operation Sindhoor represents a watershed moment in India's fight against terrorism. It is a testament to our unwavering commitment to safeguarding our sovereignty and protecting our citizens. This operation, while being a testament to our military prowess, also underscores our adherence to international law and our commitment to regional peace and stability. The decision to launch Operation Sindhoor was not taken lightly. It was the culmination of meticulous planning, careful consideration of all options, and a firm belief that the time for restraint was over. The serene beauty of Pahalgam, a picturesque hill station nestled in the Himalayas, was shattered on date of Pahalgam attack. A cowardly act of terror targeting innocent civilians shook the nation to its core. The attack, executed with chilling brutality, claimed the lives of innocent individuals, including specific details about victims, for example, women, children. The responsibility for this heinous act was quickly attributed to Name of Terrorist Group, an organization known for its deep anti-India sentiment and its history of perpetrating violence in the region. The Pahalgam attack was not an isolated incident. It was part of a larger pattern of cross-border terrorism that India has been grappling with for decades. These acts of violence, often targeting civilians, are aimed at creating fear and instability in India. The sheer brutality of the Pahalgam attack sent shockwaves throughout India. The public demanded justice and decisive action against those responsible for this horrific crime. The Pahalgam attack was a turning point in India's fight against terrorism. In the wake of the Pahalgam attack, India faced a critical juncture. The nation's patience had been tested, and there was a growing clamour for a strong and decisive response. The government, after careful deliberation and assessment of all available intelligence, decided to launch Operation Sindhoor. This operation, named after significance of the name Sindhoor, was a testament to India's resolve to no longer remain a passive victim of cross-border terrorism. Operation Sindhoor, launched in the early hours of date and time of the operation, was a meticulously planned and precisely executed military operation. The targets were carefully chosen to neutralize the immediate threat and degrade the capabilities of the terrorist organizations operating from across the border. The objective of Operation Sindhoor was twofold: to dismantle the terrorist infrastructure and to send a clear and unambiguous message that India would no longer tolerate the use of its neighbor's territory as a launchpad for attacks against its citizens. The operation was not about seeking revenge, but about ensuring accountability and preventing future acts of terror. The success of Operation Sindhoor, both in terms of its execution and its impact, sent a strong message to the region and the world that India was no longer willing to tolerate terrorism in any form. Operation Sindhoor was not a random act of aggression, but a carefully calibrated response with clearly defined targets and objectives. The operation was aimed at dismantling the terrorist infrastructure operating from across the border, specifically targeting training camps, launch pads, communication centers. These targets were chosen based on credible intelligence inputs and were believed to be crucial to the operational capabilities of the terrorist organizations. The primary objective of Operation Sindhoor was to degrade the ability of terrorist organizations to plan and execute attacks against India. By targeting their training camps, launch pads, and communication centers, the operation aimed to disrupt their networks, disrupt their logistics, and cripple their ability to operate with impunity. Beyond the immediate tactical objectives, Operation Sindhoor had a broader strategic goal: to compel Pakistan to take concrete action against terrorist groups operating from its soil. Section 5. The aftermath, casualties, damage, and the fog of war. In the immediate aftermath of Operation Sindhoor, conflicting reports emerged regarding casualties and damage. While the Indian government maintained that the operation was conducted with surgical precision, minimizing civilian casualties, Pakistan claimed that, Pakistan had different details about the casualties and damage. The fog of war, often characterized by misinformation and propaganda, made it challenging to ascertain the veracity of these claims. India, in its official statements, emphasized that the operation was conducted with the utmost professionalism and adherence to international law, ensuring minimal collateral damage and civilian casualties. The targets, according to the Indian government, were chosen based on credible intelligence inputs and were specifically chosen to avoid any civilian areas or military installations. Pakistan, on the other hand, painted a different picture, alleging that the Indian operation resulted in civilian casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure. The conflicting narratives surrounding the casualties and damage caused during Operation Sindhoor highlighted the challenges of assessing the impact of military operations in a contested environment. Section 6. India's resolve, official statements and public sentiment. Following Operation Sindhoor, India's leadership maintained a firm and resolute stance. In a televised address to the nation, Prime Minister's name stated, quote, "A strong statement from the Prime Minister about the operation and India's resolve to combat terrorism." The Prime Minister emphasized that Operation Sindhoor was not an act of aggression, but a preemptive strike aimed at protecting India's citizens and safeguarding its sovereignty. The Indian government also launched a diplomatic offensive, briefing the international community about the operation and providing evidence to support its claims of targeting terrorist infrastructure. The public sentiment in India was overwhelmingly in support of Operation Sindhoor. Social media platforms were abuzz with messages of support for the armed forces, and there was a palpable sense of national unity in the face of adversity. Section 7. Pakistan's outcry, denial, condemnation, and vows of retaliation. Pakistan's response to Operation Sindhoor was swift and predictable. The Pakistani government vehemently denied any involvement in the Pahalgam attack and condemned the Indian operation as a blatant act of aggression. Pakistan also claimed that the Indian strikes had resulted in civilian casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure, using these allegations to garner international sympathy and portray India as the aggressor. The Pakistani military, in a statement released shortly after the operation, vowed to retaliate at a time and place of their choosing. Pakistan also placed its armed forces on high alert, deploying troops along the border and increasing patrols in the region. Section 8. The world takes notice. International reactions and concerns. The international community's response to Operation Sindhoor was mixed, with some countries expressing support for India's right to self-defense, while others urging restraint and dialogue. The United States, a key ally of India, issued a statement acknowledging India's right to defend itself against terrorism, but also called for de-escalation and dialogue between India and Pakistan. Several other countries, including list countries that issued statements condemning terrorism and supporting India's right to self-defense, condemned the Pahalgam attack and expressed solidarity with India. However, some countries expressed concern over the escalation of tensions between India and Pakistan and urged both sides to exercise restraint and engage in dialogue. The international community's response to Operation Sindhoor highlighted the complex geopolitical realities of the region and the challenges of achieving a consensus on issues related to terrorism. Section 9. Operation Sindhoor, a watershed moment in India's fight against terror. Operation Sindhoor represents a watershed moment in India's fight against terrorism. It marks a decisive shift from strategic restraint to a more proactive and assertive posture. The operation, conducted with precision and professionalism, demonstrated India's willingness to take decisive action to protect its interests and its citizens. The operation sent a clear and unambiguous message to the perpetrators of terror. India will no longer tolerate the use of its neighbors' territory as a safe haven for terrorism. It also highlighted India's growing military capabilities and its resolve to use all means necessary to defend itself. Operation Sindhoor, while a military operation, was also a diplomatic statement. It underscored India's commitment to international law and its respect for the sovereignty of its neighbors. The long-term impact of Operation Sindhoor on India's security environment remains to be seen, but it has undoubtedly shifted the dynamics in the region.